Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
And welcome to this episode of Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Richard Franzi. This is podcast episode number 1212. This is interview number 1525 for those of you keeping score at home. Blue Ocean Strategy, or known as the acronym BOS, is one of the most popular innovation business theories over the past 15 years, and the only one with tools, methodology, and processes to help executives like you create uncontested growth. Brian Gladden of Strategy and Innovation Institute is a leading expert on the Blue Ocean Strategy, and his research has made significant strides within. I've asked him to come on. I've seen him present to a room full of CEOs. I was taken by his messaging. I said, you got to come down here and share that message with our audience. Come down here, he did. Brian, welcome to Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. I am excited to be here, and same to you. I mean, obviously, you commanded the room when we were together, so I appreciate
we
the
shared
kind
the
words.
stage, as they say. So he's a presenter within the Renaissance Executive Forum system. Craig Hetrick, who's our business partner in Sacramento, had us up in Tahoe for a great day and a half of learning with business owners. But let's come back to you and what you do. Why do firms, middle market firms, companies that listen to Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast need to innovate, Brian Gladden?
Yeah, that is the key question. So going back to decades, the father of most management consulting, Peter Drucker, or anybody else, Accenture, any of the new consulting firms, any studies you read out there, it's all about if you don't innovate, you're going to become obsolete. Mm-hmm. You're going to die. Okay, I mean, look at Blockbuster and Compaq and Kodak, and you can go on and on about all the companies, right, that have not innovated and have died.
Right.
So every business, profit, nonprofit, doesn't matter. Every vertical industry has to innovate to grow, or you're basically stagnant. You're going to be passed up and die.
Okay, so I get it. And technology only exaggerates that dilemma, right? Because
absolutely.
Technology can be the mass disruptor and innovator. But you don't have to just have technology to innovate, correct?
Absolutely. So people, especially Silicon Valley, where I'm in Northern Cal, everybody thinks technology, which is great because it's an enabler, as you mentioned. It's a tool to drive innovation. But invention is not innovation. Technology invention just is because, we can do something, let's make it. Doesn't mean there's any value to the end user, which is innovation is value. So, to your point, technology is now exponentially making it easier for people to disrupt or compete faster and faster, internet all over the world. So if you're not innovating using technology, you're probably getting left behind.
And it seems, based on my experience working with business owners for the last 11 years and being in the corporate world for 20-some years before that, that the natural tendency for organizations is away from innovation. Culturally, we get these systems in place, we work hard to get processes, and don't mess with what's working.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've worked for many Fortune 50 companies, so I get it. This is what we do. Here's our market. We've got structure and process and organizational things in place. Now let's just go out and deliver to our customers, and then you get myopic, right? You don't see everything out there. You don't see the forest for the trees.
Right.
And so that's exactly what happens. People, I want to innovate. I mean, everybody we've talked to, everybody wants to innovate. They get excited when you say, I'm going to do this. And then it's day-to-day life, whether it's business or parenting. You're like, I want to do this, but I just don't have time.
Brian, and we're talking with Brian Gladden. Is it your experience that scale works against innovation? That's my bias. The bigger you get, the harder it is to maintain an innovative spirit, which is why many times large companies get taken out by two guys in a garage.
Sure. So in that perspective, yeah. And when we talk about innovation theories, you're talking about disruptive innovation, which Christensen coined years ago, same kind of time frame as Blue Ocean Strategy, which is if you're going to be a small guy and get into a market on the low end, you're going to disrupt the big guys, hence Kodak and Compaq and other companies, Blockbuster, right?
Right.
But the problem is when you're the big guy, you don't want to disrupt yourself. You'll lose, you'll fail in the same industry. So it's hard when you're making tons of money and the shareholders, it's all about how your quarterly earnings did, right? That's what stock market. It's all about Wall Street, and I got to hit my numbers. I don't want to rock the boat.
Right, can't take a risk.
Yeah, so I don't want to innovate. And maybe I'll create a little group over here who does incubation and innovation, but they're not really tied to the core business.
Right.
It usually doesn't work.
Right. We'll invest in that. Well, you've used Kodak a couple times, and I wrote about them and talk about them in my talk in my book. I mean, The challenge is you couldn't replace the impact of film with a digital platform. So even though they had the innovations inside their shop, they couldn't figure out how to monetize it because it would blow their business model to hell and back.
Right.
So they licensed third parties to innovate to invent off of the innovations that they came up with.
Yeah, so lots of stories and use cases like you mentioned that when you're big, it's hard to pivot. You're not as flexible, you're not as nimble. Little guys is easier, but on the flip side, the bigger guys have the resources and the assets, the money. So you can innovate and take risks, but you don't want to. It's just human nature, it's culture.
Well, they talk about the story of Steve Jobs and seeing the window-based GUI interface at Xerox PARC in Northern California, and Xerox had this beautiful tool that he realized the value of it and was able to create the user experience that we all know now with the mouse-driven GUIs. And there was a large company that had the invention, the innovation, but they couldn't figure out how to bring it into the market.
Yeah, and that goes back to some of these other innovation theories like business model, right? You mentioned business model. So business model, canvas, business model innovation is key. I mean, you can have the greatest idea or invention, but if your current business is completely different, if you're a brick and mortar retail shop and now all of a sudden you want to be an online player or an OEM, that's your business models out of line. You're probably going to fail at whatever you're going to do.
Right. Okay, so I'm walking all over the questions that we have.
That's all good.
I
like it. It's conversation.
So for the first 5 minutes, I've just blown out the whole script, but we'll get back to the script. Let me get back to the script because there's a lot of good content that we can get to here. What is Blue Ocean's? So let's go back to the start. What is Blue Ocean Strategy?
So Blue Ocean Strategy is one of the leading innovation methodologies and frameworks created by Professors Kim and Malburn from INSEAD Business School, so one of the leading business schools. They created this in 2004, and right around the time when Christensen's disruptive theory and a few others. So there's only been a few really high-level leading innovation theories that have structure and process around them. And to me, Blue Ocean Strategy is the only one that has a really deep framework of processes. And how do you get from an idea to actually some innovation, right? Most of the time we read these books and everybody gets excited, bestseller, and you're like, oh, well, this company did this, and Apple did this, or Amazon did this.
Right.
And they're all use cases or case studies, but there's no prescription. How do I do it? Well, Kim and Malburn created Blue Ocean Strategy, these tools, and now there's an online platform that take you through it. And so I've actually become an expert in those methodologies and frameworks and tools to help other businesses do that. I mean, people can do it on their own. It's like being an accountant. You can CPA, do it yourself or hire someone to do it, but there's a process there, right? So it's all about that roadmap. How do I do this? So the tools are there. So I've basically become now an expert in that as well as other methods that can add on to Blue Ocean Strategy and augment the theory.
So what was the origin of the name Blue Ocean Strategy?
Oh, that's a good one. I won't pretend I know exactly where it came from, but the whole theory is about red oceans versus blue oceans.
Which are?
Okay. So a red ocean is the normal business we all compete in an industry, right? Our business, we're attacking each other. It's bloody waters. It's like
all these shark attacks. I'm thinking, oh my God, you don't want to be in the water with that.
Yeah. So any
lose a leg.
Right. Any industry we're in, we're competing, and in theory, we're making the waters bloody with our competition. Blood or our blood. Yeah. And so Blue Ocean, Kim and Malburn said, let's create something there's no one there. There's no competition. It's peaceful space. It's blue ocean. It's tranquil.
Set the sail and tack to your.
I don't have to worry about anything. Right? Let's all go.
I want that.
Me too.
So since 15 years now, the Blue Ocean Strategy has been accepted and adopted by a lot of different companies. I'm wondering if you could just give me some examples of companies that have looked at Blue Ocean Strategy as a way to innovate. Yeah,
absolutely. Some of my favorite ones that. They've actually done case studies on some great YouTubes out there, and my website, I link to Kim and Malburn. I don't want to pretend I'm taking credit for that, but just so I can help people understand how to do it. One of the favorite ones is Nintendo Wii. So you and I are not the age of typical gamers, right? I don't know if you're a gamer.
No.
I'm not much of a gamer either. No. My two daughters, 13 and 15, are gamers. So 12 years old to 35 years old is your gaming market. 50-plus grandmas, grandpas are not your gamers. So Nintendo basically went out and said, how do you get people who are non-customers of a specific market gaming to play? Well, first you've got to observe and figure out why don't they participate in some industry, right? What do they do that is either something to to take the place of that,
Right.
other entertainment, or why can't they do whatever it is they're doing?
Makes sense.
And they basically observed and said the quick twitch muscles, right? You got your joystick and you're trying to jump and shoot and fire and all this stuff. Well, most of us can't compete with our kids doing that. So you're like, okay, that's way too much intensity. So they said, let's just put the thing around your wrist. We've all played Wii,
Yes.
which is what they came up with. So how do we make a lower impact to get now tennis or yoga, or you can bowl, right? You can shoot baskets with it. So you can play with your grandkids. They had a huge spike in non-customers, non-gamers now.
So that's the blue
entering.
ocean then.
That's the blue ocean. And all blue ocean is about is finding commonalities in non-customers. So people who are not in your industry,
Okay.
non-disruptive. But if our industry is gaming, and you're like, okay, here's the piece of the pie. I either have to grow the pie everybody grows, or I have to take
Right.
some from you.
Right.
Well, Blue Ocean says, well, no, what are things, why don't you and I, why doesn't Rick and Brian participate? Let's change the value curve. Let's
So grow the pie.
well, it's really augment. It's almost adjacent. Like, okay, I'm going
Okay.
to bring in Grandma and Grandpa, Rick and Brian. They've never been in this market. They're non-customers.
Okay.
I've got to change the value curve. What am I offering to them? Now it's a form factor. I've changed the form factor.
that's
I've
what they
eliminated the
identified.
quick twitch,
Right.
and I've added this thing around my wrist. So I've changed the whole dynamic.
And it's a blue ocean, for one, because it's non-customers now becoming customers.
Correct.
And your competition initially may not have an answer for what you've done.
Exactly.
Because they're not
There's-
looking at those people as prospects.
Absolutely. There's no one doing what you're doing. Top Golf's my other favorite example.
Okay.
So I think we're up where I live, literally a mile away, is the only Top Golf in California now, but probably you've played there,
Yeah.
been there.
Yeah.
Most people who go to Top Golf, if you've been, you can literally view and see they're not golfers, right? They're not golfers. They don't
Okay.
go because they're golfers.
Right.
So Top Golf basically looked at the golf market. You have courses, private or public, and you have driving ranges. That's your golf market, besides the actual hardware.
Yes.
So they said, how do you get people who aren't golfers to golf? Well, you have to change the value proposition.
Okay.
Okay. So they said, what do we have to eliminate? Well, first of all, people don't want to bring their own balls and clubs that aren't golfers. They don't have any.
Yeah.
And second, you don't want to spend 5 hours on a golf course when you don't know how to play golf. So they basically took, say, a driving range type of environment.
Right.
But they said, what do we need to change to get people to come? Well, it's about fun. It's about excitement. It's about gaming, right? So they added gamification, they added night play, they added music, and most importantly, they raised the element of quality food and beverage.
Yes.
So Blue Ocean strategy is about eliminating certain things, reducing other factors.
Eliminating the things that are either constraints or aren't valued to the next customer.
Exactly, that
Okay.
aren't valued. So they might be valued to the current market.
Well, sure, yeah.
but to
Look at the beauty course I'm playing.
There you
I
go,
pay-
right? Yeah, I'm a golfer, but
Pelican
to
Hill, blah, blah, blah.
to non-golfers though, they could care less about 5-hour round in 40 acres and
View of the
you're by
ocean.
Ping I-2s or whatever it is.
Right.
So they said, let's add these other things, change the value curve, and now you get 42% of the 10 million customers to Top Golf last year consider themselves non-golfers.
Wow.
So you've had a whole new market of 42%
Right.
non-customers.
And there's nothing that the established golf courses can do necessarily to change to attract that
No,
person
it's not
they're
their
not a
target
golfer.
market. That's
Yeah.
not their market.
It's not, yeah. So it's a blue ocean
It's-
because
Absolutely.
you've come up with the innovation and you've attracted clients.
Yeah, you figured out commonalities that would attract someone who otherwise wouldn't do that. And will it be Blue Ocean forever? No, of course not. It's a couple of years, someone else will
Well,
create the
that's the
same
idea,
thing.
right?
and
Yeah, right.
But you have this now
You have a
lead.
window.
Right, you got a window of opportunity.
Right.
And innovation, to me, is continuous. And that's one of the next questions that's obvious. Was like, well, gee, how long are you going to be this Blue Ocean by yourself? Could be 6 months, could be 6 years. You don't know.
Right. But you got first mover advantage.
Exactly. And it's like, I say innovation's like cybersecurity. You don't put a firewall in and now you're done with security.
Yeah.
Right?
Amen. We're done.
No, tomorrow it's obsolete. It's same with innovation. You don't just say, oh, we innovated. Well, no, it's a lifestyle. It's a process. Like going to the gym. I went to the gym last year. I'm good and done.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you got to go all the time. It's a process.
And none that suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So it's a cultural thing then. Innovation.
Yes, because you've got to have a process. You've got to have structure around it, just like HR, finance processes, organizational processes that you teach in Renaissance. All these things where decades and decades we have these processes for everything else in the business. And as you attest and know very well, you help the smaller businesses, especially who might not have those other folks, to build these business processes.
Right.
Most folks, even the large ones, don't have the innovation processes built in. because, as you pointed out, you don't want to disrupt yourself. It's usually about ideation. Oh, I came up with this cool idea. Then you put it on paper and you put it in the drawer, and you're like, hey, did we do that business plan last year? No, let's pull it out and try it again.
Yeah.
Because it's not ingrained in the culture. It's not from the top down.
I was going to ask you, is
this
is the tone at the top?
Yeah, it got to be top down. Your objectives, your key results, which is the new kind of hot button on measurement, OKRs out there in the marketplace, which we might get back to, is
I don't know.
You've got to align it with the CEO's vision and mission for the company and what you're trying to accomplish. If it's just a one-off, then it's probably not going to work. But if you're going to grow your business, you can either acquire companies, increase your sales, hire new guys, increase the pipeline, sales coaching, or you can innovate and create new market space.
Right.
But that's just something that people haven't understood. How do I do it besides just a cool
Do people
idea?
ever go to you, Brian Gladden, how do I put structure around innovation? Innovation is this squishy thing that's inspired.
Yep.
It seems like it's counterintuitive.
It seemed that way, but no. So the first thing you got to do, and Kim and Malburn on their kind of process, is where am I now? So any good theory, you got to figure out, where am I now? How do I compete with people in my market space? And what are those competing factors? So Topgolf, you compete on time and price and food and beverage and things like that. Like Pelican Hill, okay, I'm going to go there versus a Muni course. That's on price. So everybody has price. So you got to figure out, am I a me too? When you draw, gee, I'm better at customer service. Well, they have more retail stores, but I have more products. And you map it out, and you basically figure out, in most businesses, your value curve line's kind of the same. You're kind of overlapping each other, and you kind of go, wow, I thought I was really, really good, but kind of like a me too.
Right.
And then it's on relationships, which is the norm for selling. So you got to figure out where you're at, and then figure out, what can I potentially change, eliminate, reduce, raise, to create something new. But that's just the first step. Then it's, all right, how do I actually create value and confirm that someone wants this? So you've got to get out in the market, ask people, real customers or prospects, gee, is there value in creating this area of Topgolf where you could come and have fun and listen to music and would you do it?
Right.
Versus put it on a business plan, which a lot of people do, startups, and you get some money, but you never even ask the customer or potential customers in the market, do you care about this? So that's the second biggest piece.
Got to find the market.
There's got to be value. Otherwise, it's just invention and there's no purpose to it.
Right.
So then you look across, adjacent markets. What are adjacent markets doing that we might have some play in? Are there commonalities? Or what do people do instead of going to dinner? Well, they go to the movies. So there's time and money where people are spending things that you might say, gee, am I doing something that could draw those folks? Right. So that's just an example of how Topgolf might have looked at it.
So I would think that Topgolf is really looking at competing for entertainment dollars,
Absolutely.
Not golf-related dollars.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just a delivery system for entertainment. I'm giving you an experience, and it just happens to be you're hitting the ball and you're playing a game, and maybe you compete a little bit. Yeah,
absolutely. Those are the commonalities for a lot of those 42%, right?
Okay.
Is I'll go hang out with my friends who do like to golf, but I don't care if I hit the ball straight.
Right. We're having fun. I'm having a couple drinks maybe and eating some good food and listening to great music, and we had a fun time, and we just happened to be golfing. We could have gone bowling. We could have gone dancing. We could have gone fill in the blank.
Absolutely.
So really, when you're innovating in that way, you're really looking at new income streams than what the industry traditionally has depended on to kind of survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say most listeners out there, if they're whatever industry you're in, you, right off the top of your head, if you said, gee, what are the most common complaints that you get in your industry? Gee, I wish your industry could do this, or your business. And everybody goes, oh, well, yeah, I get this all the time, 1, 2, or 3, right?
That.
And whether it's you don't have the funding or the technology or the resources of people to fix that, those are opportunities. So Blue Ocean Strategy, basically, there's back to your question, 3 things to look at. Perspective is number 1. Perspective is interesting because we're all in this view of our current business, whatever that business is, right?
Right.
So and if you look outside the forest for the trees, you see opportunities that are pain points for the buyer.
Yes.
And an example I do when we do these talks is, you bought a red Porsche yesterday, and you might not have seen a red Porsche on the streets in months, and all of a sudden you're driving your red Porsche, and you see 5 red
But he is,
portions,
yeah,
right? And you're like,
yeah.
but now you're aware of something different
Okay.
because you're looking for something different. If you're not looking for opportunity and innovation, you don't see the opportunities, people's pain. So whatever industry you're in, your customer has pain points, right? Whether it's pre-sales, delivery, using a product, disposing of a product.
Okay.
It could be your partners in your ecosystem. You're like, well, I just make this pen. I don't sell the pen. I don't make the ink in the pen. But what if that's what the problem is in that pen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's affecting your end user. Even though you could care less about it, it's still part of the buyer's pain point. And
Right.
if you can fix that, there's potentially blue oceans there. So that buyer pain point is an opportunity.
So if you do a intelligent customer listening program, you might find ideas that give you an opportunity to consider what if.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't have to be solely thinking it up in your little lab coats in your innovation room. If you get out in
Nope.
the marketplace, you can. I love the idea. If you start looking for it, you might see it. So, teachable moment here on Critical Mass Radio Show. We love to have these moments which we gong, and so the audience knows to. We just hit on something that Brian Gladden is sharing that I'd like to kind of come back to. So let's have that
Yeah.
a version of the conversation again.
Yeah, perspective is the first thing, and roadmap is the second, which we already talked about, and then humanness, which I'll come to, getting people involved. So perspective in Blue Ocean strategy is all about keeping an open mind on your consumer or your potential consumers' pain points. What are things that are bothering them? Those are opportunities.
Yes.
So
Welcome them.
Yes, you welcome them.
Encourage them to come in. The more you hear, because you might just find one you can do something about.
Right. The we was an example we just talked about.
Right.
Let's see, I'll give you another example. One of my favorites is, Dry Bar. So have you heard of the new salon called Dry Bar?
Yeah. Why don't you point at me when you ask that question?
Well,
why did you point at our producer?
Yeah, most guys, I think you and I probably don't go to the
Okay.
salons and get.
Hey.
We might.
I
Some
do these
guys
quarterly
do.
events. You
I
know,
know,
I
I
like to
know.
look good, but anyway.
So what I found fascinating, it's not one of these massive companies that, like Topgolf or Amazon people know about. So it's the small service-oriented one that people, well, give me just a smaller example. So Dry Bar started here in Orange County, I believe.
Yes.
And so they basically were stylists, hair salon, sister, brother, and said, gee, we get all these requests all the time for women who come in and like, just fix my hair. You can just wash it and style it. I got an event today. I got a wedding. I got a party. I want to go out. I want you to make it look better than me because you're a stylist.
Yeah, makes
Well,
sense.
salon and people who are doing hair cutting and stylists, they make most of their money on cuts and colors. You could spend 2 or 3 hours in the chair and you
Yes.
spend a couple $100 on a cut and a color. And they said, we don't have time just to wash you and style it and blow it dry, or it could take weeks to get an appointment and you just want to go pop in and 30, 40 minutes you're out. So they created Dry Bar, which basically says, hey, we don't do any cuts, we don't do any colors, just come in, we'll shampoo it, we'll style it, blow it dry, boom, you're gone in 45 minutes. Give you some champagne, have a nice customer experience, and charge you, $40 just to wash and style your hair. They have, I think, now 70 locations and $50 million in the last few years.
Wow.
So it's just an opportunity that they saw because they heard, right?
Right.
And they were keeping an open mind that a pain point is now an opportunity. Just fill that hole. It's a new market space. It's now a completely blue ocean.
Right. Wow. And that's so fascinating because there's no reason why the existing salons couldn't have put a couple extra chairs in and dedicated it to that service, and they wouldn't even see
It's
it.
the simplest things. This is one of my other favorite examples. I'll be brief on this one. Toilet paper. You're like, how do you innovate toilet paper?
Yeah, how do you?
It's
innovate?
freaking toilet paper.
Right.
Right. So Kimberly-Clark, one of the biggest, manufacturing companies in the world, they actually went through the Blue Ocean strategy. The whole YouTube on this and case study that Blue Ocean Institute did. The CEO of Brazil, Kimberly-Clark, talked through the whole thing. And they basically said, we have 50 plus different toilet paper versions on the shelves in South America, Brazil, which is what they were looking at. And like, how do we differentiate ourselves? And there versus here, you have much smaller living conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about not the 1% in the mansions, but the people who live in very small, one-room house for a family of many people. And they don't have the big trucks like I have. They can drive to Costco and pick up a 24-pack of Charmin. You take public transportation, and you have to carry your groceries back, and you have a very small storage place to put your groceries and your consumables. So people didn't buy 24 packs of toilet paper down there. And so the point of sale is like you just grab something, a 4-pack, that's it. So they went out in the market and said, what can we do? What's your problem when you buy toilet paper that we can change? And they basically said, well, we don't have storage. I can't buy very many. And I have, the mom is got her grocery bags on the bus going to and from the store, right, to get back home. So you can only handle so many things. So they said, why don't we just push the toilet paper together? You literally got the roll and squeeze it together. Well, as soon as you let go, it bounces back. Right. So all they did was squish the package of 24 or 12 rolls together and saved 40% of packaging and space, and put a little plastic handle on it so now mom can carry it.
Oh my God.
So their logistics and warehousing, which is huge in manufacturing and retail, went down 18 to 20%. The shelf space went down, which is gold in retail.
Right.
And now mom can carry it, and when she gets home, she can store it because it's 40% less storage. They became the #1 sustainable supplier to Walmart globally because of that. And, oh, by the way, and they made it also eco-friendly. So now eco-friendly paper squished together, blue ocean. You're like, it's toilet paper. It's simple.
Right.
But nobody went out and asked the people, why can't you buy more toilet paper?
So, Brian, it works for product companies. It works for service companies. It works for the companies who are looking to bring innovation in and maintain it because it becomes systematized.
Absolutely.
We're out of time. I can't believe it. We're actually over time. We ran a little long here, ladies and gentlemen, today just because there was so much content, and we only scratched the surface, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you get to Southern California on occasion. We'll have to have you back to go to part 2 of what you had
I would love to.
Okay,
I would love to.
All right, but if someone would like to learn more about what you're doing and your practice, how do they find you online, Brian?
Yes, please go to www.si2, so Strategy Innovation, the number 2, Blue, BLUE, so si2blue.com. And I have to say, it's a temporary website. I'm definitely not a professional website developer, so I have a firm developing one for me. Actually, they're a Renaissance a member. Oh. So hopefully that will look better very soon, but there's enough there. And there's actually my phone number, my email is on there, and a download of an innovation readiness assessment that has been done by Strategizer, who created the business model canvas, so the leaders in that space.
Sure.
So download it, see if you're innovative, and where you're at. Most people are, they end up saying, no, we're not so innovative, and then give me a call and I'll see if I can help.
This certainly works for large companies, but it also, based on your story, works for small companies and even startup early stage companies.
Absolutely.
Right? So the tools are scalable across different size organizations.
Yep, small, large, doesn't matter what vertical, product, service, you name it. Everybody has to innovate, doesn't matter.
Right. All right. Well, this has been a kick in the pants. I've totally enjoyed it. Thank you
too.
for your time.
Thank you, Rick.
I've really enjoyed it. All right. I'm going to say thank you to Paul Roberts, who's our engineer for today's show, and our producers, without whom we could not do this show, Joan Park, Crystal Nunley, and Nicole Terry. If you'd like to connect with me, let's do it on LinkedIn. I'm Richard Franzi, Franzi, and we'll go from there. Until our next show, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.
You have been listening to Critical Mass Radio Show Business Talk Show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.